Was the U.S.S. Eisenhower almost struck by a Houthi missile? New reports a close call for the U.S. Navy aircraft carrier. The Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen have been supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran since October 7th attack in Gaza by launching missile attacks on Israel. These attacks have garnered regional attention, but since October 7th, the Houthis have launched an anti-ship campaign in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden that is much more effective and dangerous. Although the attacks have only resulted in the sinking of 2 ships, they have caused significant disruption to international shipping, as many ships have diverted from the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, opting instead to take the longer route to the Cape of Good Hope and around southern Africa. The ongoing attacks have disrupted 12% of all international shipping that passes through the Red Sea. The Houthi rebel attacks also pose a threat to the oil movement out of the Persian Gulf, which has 20% of the world's oil passing through it. These two facts prompt the United States Navy to deploy warships, both to protect commercial ships from attacks and to target the Houthi locations responsible for the attacks. The U.S. Navy's traditional role is to suppress the attacks on shipping that threaten international shipping and to maintain open shipping lanes. The attacks by the U.S. and the international partners on the Houthi rebels have yielded mixed results, but the Navy's actions have also made their ships a target for the Houthi attacks. During the spring and summer of 2024, the U.S.S. Eisenhower, along with its carrier strike group consisting of up to 2 cruisers and 3 destroyers, operated in the area to suppress the Houthi activities. The Eisenhower Strike Group reported firing 155 surface-to-air missiles and 60 air-to-air missiles to defend itself against Houthi attacks. The Eisenhower Strike Group also launched 555 air-to-surface and cruise missiles against the Houthis. This incident marked the highest number of attacks against a U.S. aircraft carrier since World War II, underscoring the threat that missiles pose to aircraft carriers and the critical role of air defense systems against missile attacks. The attacks were also so numerous that the Houthis, most likely in a crude use of strategic communications, reported that the U.S.S. Eisenhower was struck, severely damaged, and most likely sunk. The Houthis likely sent this message to their supporters to boost their morale and place the U.S. at a disadvantage in the region's messaging war. The Eisenhower was in fact not hit, not damaged, or sunk, but by the time the U.S. DoD responded, the rumor had taken hold, and the ending of the carrier's deployment and exiting from the theater was reported as a U.S. carrier that was damaged and had to sail away from the war zone for repairs. This rumor followed Eisenhower on social media all the way to Crete in late June, and it was clear there was no damage to the Eisenhower. It was reported this week in a West Point publication that, though it was not hit, a Houthi missile came in low over the horizon toward the Eisenhower, which the Eisenhower did not detect it as it got within 200 meters, 219 yards, from the carrier before it crashed into the sea, without ever being engaged by the defense systems of the battle group. There are 2 lessons for the DoD in this Red Sea engagement. One is the importance of timely, efficient media messaging to prevent rumors such as Eisenhower's demise from spreading and bolstering the morale of the Houthis and their allies. The West and NATO are increasingly concerned about this issue as strategic communications is becoming a crucial component of public relations and messaging in military operations. The second lesson pertains to the danger that the missiles pose. Even a relatively unsophisticated non-state actor such as the Houthis can acquire advanced weapons in sufficient quantities, putting a carrier strike group on the defensive and increasing the risk of missile strikes. Which, while it is true that Iran supports the Houthis, the U.S. Navy should learn from this and avoid unduly risking a carrier in a setting where more numerous and sophisticated Chinese missiles pose a threat, such as the Western Pacific. Sending the U.S.S. Eisenhower into the region in a haphazard attempt to suppress the Houthis was an unnecessary risk, and it was a mistake to use such a high-value asset as a U.S. supercarrier. The Houthis pose a risk to international trade and shipping, and the U.S. Navy must respond to this challenge. It would have been better to commit the carrier as part of an operation to exert overwhelming force and consider deploying an MEU or an ARG, Marine Expeditionary Unit, or an amphibious response group, along with the Eisenhower against the Houthis, not to occupy Yemen or their strongholds, but to destroy their capability on the ground that the air and missile strikes alone have been unable to destroy. The focus should not be on the composition of the force so much, but rather the necessity of temporarily occupying ground with a ground unit to degrade the Houthis' infrastructure to the extent that it would be impossible otherwise through air assets alone. It is crucial for political leaders to consider the consequences of sending a carrier on a mission in a geographically limited area, subjecting it to repeated attacks without having the political will to escalate force used to end the threat. The political leadership put the U.S.S. Eisenhower in danger and hoped it wouldn't be hit, and when it should have been kept out of harm's way, or sent in to end the threat to the carrier and regional shipping with a more decisive force to end the threat. Consider this incident as an example of how the crew's skill, the weapons employed, and a bit of luck prevented a successful attack on a U.S. carrier. The insufficient effort and the decision to divert shipping around the Cape of Good Hope, thereby increasing the risk to a U.S. carrier without significantly improving the situation in the Red Sea, illustrate how political decisions have resulted in the worst possible outcomes for the world.